Welcome back to This Week in Wyoming Cowboys Athletics here in WyomingAthletics.org and ESPN Media powered by Sidearm Sports. My name is Jason Griefer, and once again, we are joined by Wyoming track and field legend and assistant athletic director Jeff King. I saw the tweet that came from the track and field team earlier this week. That's why I threw that in there. We'll talk about track and field here in just a minute. It was going to lead off the show, as a matter of fact, here today, but right before we started recording, I asked you, do we have anything else going on? Any big brand new breaking news? And you said, yeah, we got a new girls basketball coach. So that's exciting. We talked a couple of weeks ago about Jermaine Isaac leaving and going up to Wilmington to coach the boys. You had to find somebody to take over for him. Who is it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited. So Chad Gronis will be the new head varsity girls basketball coach going into next season. He spent the last several years on the Ross coaching staff, actually on the boys side, but he's got years of experience. Played at the collegiate level as well, knows the game really well. We're super excited about him taking over the program, and went through to talk to several people, and he was just so bought in and so ready to go right away. And it was a really good choice for us. And I think it makes for a great transition.
So you go through the process, you talk to a number of people. I'm assuming given where you are location wise, and also your standing in the league, you had a lot of interest in the position. So in going through the process and yourself and AD Jan Wilking evaluating things, talking to different candidates, when did you know that this was the guy to take over this program?
So we were actually really excited when he just expressed interest. We've known Chad for a while, and then talking with him, it was just kind of right away. We're like, okay, if he does really want this, I think we found our guy. And after I talked with him, it's just like, Jan and I talked, and we were like, I think this is it. And we know he's going to be a great leader for the program. He's got some great plans moving forward. So we're really excited about Chad coming on board for that.
Congratulations there to you, to Jan, and to new girls basketball coach there. And we'll be keeping track of that, how they look going forward here, and maybe get an update a little bit later on in the spring sports season about how he's starting to work within the program and the pieces he'll be working with come the fall. Let's start talking about your spring sports teams. And I mentioned at the top, we're here with our track and field legend here joining us on the other side of things here today. But the athletes that are now on the field and trying to become the next legends at Wyoming here, a two-meet week coming up here this week. You've got Finneytown, a trip to Clinton Massey coming up a little bit later on in the week. Really good showings at the Indian Hill Relay Invite a week ago. You got team wins in the 4x100 and also the sprint medleys there. So good showings there. How did the teams feel leaving Indian Hill, and also given that it was more of a team-oriented event? And then also, how are they prepping for this week in which they have two meets?
Well, I think I got to say first, I think legend's a very generous generous term for me, but I appreciate that. That's great from our track and field team. I appreciate it. But we feel really great. I think we're putting together a string of some really good performances, but we're also seeing some depth in some relay teams that we didn't necessarily know that was going to be there. So putting up some really good times. And I was looking at the leaderboards throughout the CHL. It's hard to find an event where we at least aren't in the top five, even top three for several, including a lot of youngsters that we talk about, freshmen and sophomores that are at the top of those lists. So we feel really good going into this week. It's going to be a great meet here today at Finneytown. Big one coming up Friday against Clinton Massey. It's going to be nice to have two here this week, especially with the Coaches Classic and the weather and all that went on. So we're excited about this week and seeing what we can do.
Let's switch gears. Let's move on to the tennis team they got going in the league since we last talked, and split a really close 3-2 loss to Marymount there, which is a bit of a surprise given how well you had played against Marymount over the last number of years, but Marymount has improved. And then you bounce back the next day with a really nice 4-1 win over Madeira. So you're sitting at 1-1. You've got Finneytown coming up on Tuesday afternoon. And then, obviously Indian Hills next week. We'll talk about that next week. And you also have matches with Walnut Hills, Talawanda, at least scheduled as of now. We're only a few weeks away from the postseason and just a handful of matches left in the regular season before you get there and try and do some damage there. Are the coaches reaching the point where they're trying to push the players to get to that peak, so to speak, when we always say you want to peak at the right time into the postseason? Are we at that point yet, or they still feel like maybe we're another week out from that?
I think that's actually a really good way to put it. I talked with Coach Tanner, and we're really looking to kind of continue. Well, obviously, we played a really tough Seven Hills team, and we were able to beat Madeira. So it's playing the out of conference tough schedule like we did yesterday against Seven Hills, and then moving forward, especially going into the Indian Hill week next week. And then, like you said, it's crazy to think that we're already only a few weeks away from the tournament. But I guess that's how spring sports go. It's.
Yeah.
We do need to find that peak and kind of start to ride that wave going over the next couple of weeks and really make sure that we're at the top of our performances moving forward. So we're excited about where they're at. I know, Thompson Blade's been having a good showing, Mark Keller and a couple of those doubles. So we like what we're doing, but definitely some room for improvement. And we got some good matches coming up to where we can really show that we are improving. We're getting better.
And still plenty of good quality tennis left to be played before we get to the postseason. But as you said, crazy to think we're just a few weeks away from that point. Let's switch gears. Let's jump onto the lacrosse field, and let's start with the boys first, because it's just one of those years. At least it seems like at this point, with losses to CHCA, Seven Hills, and then Moeller most recently. You've got 3 more on the road coming up in the next 7 days. We kind of talked last week about the mood surrounding the team and considering things aren't going well. And you talked about the fact that everybody's pushing forward, got their heads up. They're working as hard as they can. So I'm wondering, given that point and the fact that we're still struggling here, have you been able to talk to the coaches and find out what kind of things technically they're trying to do to get things shored up and to get the season turned around?
We're really just trying to kind of press forward. Like we said, we're playing really, really tough lacrosse. Like we have a really tough schedule, but our guys are continuing to coming out every single night, and they continue to try and find out what they can do to get better. Putting in the extra time on the field, talking with coaches just comes down to a little bit better execution. It's been great the past 2 days. Actually, we had 2 straight hat tricks from Coleman Jeffers, so that's a great highlight. It's really, like I said, it's a group of really tough kids. We don't have really high numbers on the team. So the guys are out there running so much, hitting. It's a physical sport. That's something that we really like to see, is how tough and the kind of the grit that they are playing against this really tough schedule. And I know that we're just a couple things away from execution wise and getting it together, where I think we can hopefully string through a couple wins here coming through the end of the year.
Do you think fatigue's starting to play a factor with this team? The fact that so many guys are having to really go the distance every time out?
I think it does, just with any other sport, right? If you don't get a lot of time to rest with these guys, but like I said, you don't see it on their faces. I'll tell you that. It's not like the guys are out there saying, I need to come out. I need to come out. They're continuing to press on, continue to play for the coach, continue to play for the school, and mainly each other. It's a great group of guys, and we're looking forward to hopefully seeing some good success coming down these last several weeks.
Over on the girls' side, they've had a lot of success early on in the year, won their first 6, and then ultimately last Tuesday lost a heartbreaker to Springboro by a score of 11-10. So a bounce here, a deflection right there, and we're sitting at 7-0. Still 6-1 is a very good start overall. There was a scheduled match on Tuesday against Summit. That's been moved back to next Monday. So our next matchup now is on Thursday at Indian Hill, and we're in a stretch now of a few in a row here, the next 3 this week. On the road right here. So they've had some time off now since the Springboro match. They're going to wind up having 9 days off in between the Springboro and Indian Hill. How have they utilized that time? And did it come at a good time for them, given they've already played a number of matches in such a short period of time?
I think it came at a great time. It was really a good period for them to start to get a little bit of rest. Obviously, that Springboro game, it was a heartbreaker. We lost in the last 7 seconds. But man, those girls play tough, and they really play hard all the way to the final end there. And it's been nice that we've been able to get them in the weight room. So they've been able to, get some lifting in before their games. They've been executing a lot on the practice field. Really just staying focused, knowing that we got through a really tough stretch there of game. And now we got a little bit of a break. It's going to be great going into playing a tough Indian Hill school. It's always a rivalry game, so that's going to be hard. But we're ready for it. Looking forward to it Thursday night.
Still off to a very good start, though, on the year, and sets up for a lot of success down the road, which we'll obviously be covering here on the podcast. Let's move on to the Diamond, and let's start with the softball team first, because after the first 2 games of the season, Seton and Middletown, something clicked, and they've been angry and they've been killing the ball ever since because they haven't lost since. They've won 9 straight overall, and now sit at 7-0 in the league. The only team at 7-0 right now after really good showings against Deer Park. And we talked last week about the offensive output that Deer Park put up against a struggling Indian Hill team, put up only 46 runs in 2 games. Your pitching staff holds them to 6 in the 2-game set. You win the games 12-4 and 5-2. How pleased were the coaches, not only with Naomi Evans, but also the rest of the coaching the pitching staff, I should say, to hold a high-powered Deer Park offense to 6 runs in 2 games?
We're really excited. Naomi Evans has done such a great job, and for us to be able to go in and sweep the Deer Park series, that doesn't happen a lot. If in recent memory, has not happened for Wyoming in a long time. So being able to go up against a really tough Deer Park program and do that, but to string on these 9 straight wins, it's been fantastic. And we love what the work that those girls are putting in every single day. But we know that pretty soon we're going to start to find, even tougher competition. We know that Taylor's going to be right there. They always have a really tough program. Got to get through Finneytown first. So it's an exciting time. 9 straight wins is great for any sport that we get to play there. Looking forward to the rest of the week for them for sure.
As you mentioned there, Taylor's coming up. They're the other unbeaten team in the league at 6-0. You're going to get them next week, so we'll talk about that next week. But you do have, as you said, also you've got 2 games against Finneytown coming up here in the next 7 days, and you also have 1 more against Marymount to complete that 2-game set. You already beat them once by a score of 22-5, and this is a Marymount team who I'm sure you saw last week won a 35-33 game against Indian Hill. So they can have the potential to score runs. They can also give up a lot of runs as well. So I'm wondering, how do they carry the momentum then off the Deer Park series into this week where, in theory, you should take care of business against Marymount, but also should get a pretty good challenge from Finneytown?
It's 1 game at a time. We're going to get a big challenge against Finneytown for 2 games, and Marymount, it's tough to beat a team twice. So we know going into that, anything can happen. Any team that can put up 35 runs in softball, we got to make sure that we're ready to go when it comes time to play them. But like you said, playing Finneytown, that's going to be a tough game. And so it's 1 game at a time for them to hopefully keep this streak alive.
I think in one of the innings in that Indian Hill game, Marymount put 18 runs on the board in 1 inning. So it should be a good challenge for your pitching staff there. Let's switch gears onto the baseball side of things. And they're running the show right now in the CHL as well, just like the girls are in softball. The boys right now 6-0 in the league after 2 nice wins over Deer Park. Once again, you had to go to extras to beat Madeira. But still, nevertheless, got the win there. So a 3-1 week, a 7-6 loss to Batavia in there. So still non-conference, still a bit of a struggle point. And you'll get a couple of non-conference challenges coming up here later in the week. Western Brown, Bellbrook, Lakota East, they're all on the schedule later in the week. But I want to talk about one of your star players, and we mentioned him earlier in the spring sports season, and that's Brennan Pagan and what he continues to do on the mound and on the field. On the field, he's batting .500. So, okay, no big deal there. And then as a pitcher, he's 3-0 and is yet to allow a run. So he leads the league, tied for the league lead and wins up there as far as ERA goes. You can't do any better than 0. I want to talk to you and get your thoughts on his ability as a leader off the field, in the dugout, in training, in the cages, in practice, however you want to term it, because you look at this team right now. He's really the only one that's up there among the league leaders and really any stats, offensive or defensive, as far as leaders, top 3, top 5. So I'm wondering how he's leading this team off the field, in the dugout, and everywhere else that's allowing them to sit up at the top of the league standings right now.
It's not even just the baseball team. He's a leader amongst the student body. So he takes that with whatever group that he goes and he's a part of. He's a leader. They see his work ethic. They see that he's always trying to get better, put in the extra work, and they feed off of it. And then they love to see, obviously, what he's able to do on the mound. And he's just been such a great teammate, such a great leader from football to now baseball. It's been a ton of fun to watch him play. and the guys are stringing together. I mean, I was out there watching them. We're hitting the ball pretty well. Even if they're making some plays on defense, we're putting the ball in play. So it's been a great thing to watch for them, especially with league play right now. But as you mentioned, there's some out of conference games that we got to start taking care of, especially with the big schedule that we have coming up. So Brendan Pagan's going to be a big part of that. I'm sure he's been in the rest of the team's ear saying, hey, let's get some non-conference wins here, and they're going to want to follow his lead for sure.
He's used to being in the spotlight, given everything that he's had to do on the football field the last few years, but in particular back at this past fall, taking over as your quarterback. So the spotlight is nothing new to him, and he's, I'm sure, developed a certain comfort within that spotlight. How much pressure has that taken off of the rest of the team and really just allowed them to play their game?
I think they still kind of feel a little bit, but he's also so calm with all that pressure. So they get to kind of feed off of that a little bit and notice, hey, if he can handle it, it's not even, we can certainly do it as a team, and then back him up with all the stuff that he feels. And there's a lot of good baseball players on that team. So there's enough pressure to go around, and there's enough players to take it. That's for sure. And they're just a great team, great group of teammates. And like I said, we each got to string together some good non-conference wins here. Especially, it'd be nice. We got a nice game up at Dayton Dragon Stadium here this Friday against Bellbrook. So that'll be a nice one for them, a good experience. And hopefully we can come away with some good wins here this week.
Yeah, because you're not going to see just league teams in the postseason. So you got to start proving you can win out of the league as well. And also, like the girls, the boys have Taylor coming up next week. Taylor's right behind you in the league standings on the baseball side of things as well. So it's an important stretch here to take care of business at this point. How do you think their energy level is right now, given that they are in a stretch where they're playing, 6, 7, 8 games in a 9 or 10 day stretch? Because I'd imagine it can be pretty taxing after a while, especially on a pitching staff.
So, it definitely could be taxing, but they're not showing if it is. There are a lot of high energy guys. They smiles all around and just out there working hard, whether it's in the batting cage, it's in the bullpen, whatever they're doing, they definitely have a good attitude about them. They're excited about where they're at. And we're going to get some good tests, not only obviously in the CHL, but here we go going into the last couple of weeks of the season and hopefully make some noise in the tournament.
What is the coaching staff specifically, as we're wrapping up here on the podcast today, wanting to see from this trifecta of non-conference games? As you said, Western Brown, the trip up to Dayton Dragon Stadium against Bellbrook, and then Lakota East this weekend.
I think that we want to prove that there's a reason why we have tough non-conferences and that we belong competing with those teams. And we know that we do. We know that we can play with anybody that we want to, on the schedule. But that's it. We want to get over that non-conference hump that we haven't really had a chance to yet. We played some really good schools, but we know that we can compete with them. So it just comes down to that execution, getting rid of kind of the little mistakes that we've had, and we know that we're going to be able to be in a good spot.
It's a stretch of 5 games coming up between Wednesday and the next time we reconvene next week. And hopefully when we do reconvene next week, we'll be talking about a 5-0 stretch for the baseball team. And they just keep on rolling, as has really a lot of your spring sports as well. As we've talked about at the top of the podcast here, a new basketball coach on the girls side of things. So a lot of great things going on right now, Jeff. Certainly appreciate some of your time here, and send out some cookies to the track and field social media groups for dubbing you with a legend status, will you?
I appreciate that. Always a good time, Jason.
That is Assistant Athletic Director Jeff King at Wyoming High School, joining us for This Week in Wyoming Cowboys Athletics here in WyomingAthletics.org and ESP Media, powered by Sidearm Sports.